Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know about the artifact system in WoW Adventure, from the Artifact Vault Dungeon and artifact gameplay mechanics, to core rerolling, key charges, and what you should buy or skip in the mall so you don't waste your resources. Alright, let's get started. First, let's talk about the Artifact Vault. This is a 5-player dungeon, and you need an artifact key with available charges to enter. You get 3 charges every week, and they reset every Thursday at 5 a.m. So make sure you use all of them and don't let any charges go to waste. The entry requirement is pretty simple. You need to be at least level 60 and have the artifact system unlocked. The dungeon supports a 5-player party, and if you don't have enough players, you can bring up to 4 NPC teammates, or let the system automatically fill the remaining slots in the lobby. The recommended team setup is 1 tank, 1 healer, and 3 DPS. This follows the standard dungeon setup, so you don't really need to overthink it. One interesting thing is that the dungeon's stats and mechanics are based on the party leader's key. So if you're the leader, your key is extremely important. If you want to change those settings, you'll need to re-roll the key, which I'll explain in more detail later. As for the dungeon structure, the vault has 5 floors. Floors 1 and 2 are basically introductory floors. If you leave or stop at either of these floors, there is no settlement, and your key charge will be fully refunded as if you never entered the dungeon in the first place. Floors 3 and 4 work differently. Once you reach either of these floors, leaving the dungeon will trigger a settlement, and you'll receive your combat soul coins, but your key charge will not be refunded. Floor 5 is the infinite floor, where monsters continuously respawn in waves and become progressively harder as you keep fighting. This floor resets every Thursday at 5 a.m. at the same time as your key charges. There are also several special monster types you need to pay attention to inside the dungeon. Fog monsters hide inside black fog, and while they're in stealth, you can't target them, so you'll need to wait for them to reveal themselves or use a way to counter their mechanic. Resurrection monsters will revive with full HP after being defeated, so you need enough burst damage or a way to prevent them from coming back. Splitting monsters divide into multiple smaller enemies when they die, and if you don't handle them properly, the number of monsters can quickly get out of control. Cursed monsters apply a curse to players that reduces both offensive and defensive stats, which can become very annoying if you don't dispel it in time. One thing I really like about the infinite floor is that dying doesn't cause an immediate failure. You'll simply respawn at the spawn point and continue fighting until the timer runs out, so there's no reason to hold back. As for the rewards, if you intentionally leave before reaching floor 2, you won't receive any rewards, but your key charge will be fully refunded as mentioned earlier. After that, the dungeon follows the normal settlement system. When the timer ends, your rewards are calculated based on the total amount of combat soul coins collected by the entire team. There are also separate MVP rewards for the healer, tank, and highest DPS player. So if you're playing one of these 3 roles, make sure you perform well and try to secure that extra reward. Playing mobile games on your phone is great, but after about 30 minutes, your phone gets hot as a piece of charcoal, the battery drains like crazy, and not to mention the tiny screen causing you to misclick skills over and over again. If you're dealing with the same problems, stop for a few seconds because this is the solution I've been using for the past year. That solution is playing mobile games right on your PC with BlueStacks, one of the most popular and best optimized Android emulators available today. Instead of putting your expensive phone through all that stress, you can bring your entire mobile game library to a large PC screen and play all day without worrying about running out of battery or damaging your phone. So, what do I like most about BlueStacks? First, the super flexible keymapping. Use your mouse to activate skills, move around with the standard WASD keys just like in a real PC game, with extremely fast response times. Second, the multi-instance feature. You can run multiple accounts at the same time, making it incredibly convenient to farm materials or grind alt accounts without having to buy another phone. Third, performance optimization. It supports high FPS and sharp graphics while using your computer's resources efficiently, so even a mid-range PC can run games smoothly. Overall, if you want to take your gaming experience to the next level and grind the rankings smoothly without worrying about damaging your phone, BlueStacks is definitely a must-have software. I've left the official and completely free download link right below in the description and pinned in the comments. Go ahead and download it and give it a try today. Now let's move on to the core artifact gameplay mechanics. First, let's quickly talk about how to unlock the system. So if you haven't unlocked it yet, you'll know what level you need to aim for. Artifact is unlocked when you reach level 64 and obtain your first artifact associated with your class, meaning each profession has its own unique artifacts rather than sharing the same ones. As you reach higher levels, you'll gradually unlock more artifacts for your class, and each one comes with its own unique effects. So don't think unlocking the system once means you're done. This is a long-term progression system that continues throughout your leveling journey. There's also an interesting server-wide mechanic where if the number of players who have unlocked artifacts on the server reaches certain milestones, everyone who is level 50 or higher will automatically unlock the system as well, meaning you don't necessarily have to grind all the way to level 64 yourself, because the community can help lower level players catch up. As for the artifact structure, each artifact contains multiple small nodes and one large node. When you activate a node, you immediately gain the artifact's basic ability, along with several additional bonuses, but that's only the starting point. If you want to fully unlock its potential, you'll need to embed stronger artifact powers and artifact cores into the activated nodes. That's where the real power scaling comes in. So now let's take a closer look at how node activation actually works. Basically, you use conduction crystal to activate nodes, while energy crystal can be converted into energy. However, the cost increases every time you exchange more energy, so don't convert everything at once and waste your resources. Nodes also have to be activated in order. You need to complete all the small nodes before you can move on to the large nodes, which works much like a tech tree where you have to build your foundation first. If you accidentally activate the wrong nodes or decide to change your plan, don't worry, you can reset your activated nodes and get all the energy crystal you spent back, so you're completely free to experiment. Once a small node has been activated, you can embed an artifact power into it, while large nodes allow you to embed an artifact core. Embedding a power or core doesn't just give you its own effect, it also enhances the effect of the node itself, with the amount of enhancement depending on the item's rarity. The good thing is that you can remove any embedded power or core at any time without losing anything, so you can freely test different combinations and find the setup that works best for you. Now let's talk about durability, because this is something you really need to manage carefully. Every power and core has its own durability, and once that durability reaches 0, the item stops providing any effects. Durability is only consumed when you win a battle, so losing doesn't cost you anything. The amount consumed depends heavily on the content you're playing. Secret Realm and Calamity. Secret Realm only consume 2 durability, while Abyss consumes as much as 12. Wild Boss is extremely light at only 0.2 durability, and Hard Raid also consumes just 2. Alliance Trial consumes up to 20 when you defeat one boss, Time Mirage consumes 25, Lantern Challenge consumes 20, Artifact Vault consumes a massive 30 every time you use one run, Monster Invasion consumes 8, and Hunting Realm consumes 20 every time you use a hunting key. Looking at these numbers, Artifact Vault and Time Mirage are clearly 2 of the most durability-intensive activities, so if you farm these modes frequently, make sure you have enough resources ready to replenish your durability, otherwise your core can run out much sooner than you expect. As for replenishing durability, red and orange cores can be replenished using another item of the same type, with no limit on the number of times you can replenish them. Whenever they run out, you can keep restoring them as long as you have the required materials. For other powers and cores, however, you can only replenish them a maximum of 2 times. Once the item reaches 0 durability for the 3rd time, it will disappear permanently. So you need to think carefully before using lower rarity items in content that consumes a lot of durability. Each replenishment restores durability based on the amount provided by the item you're using, but it cannot exceed the item's original maximum durability. As for the Artifact Charging Vault, this is basically a storage system for your cores and powers. You can add your cores and powers to the vault and whenever the artifact currently in use runs out of durability, the system will automatically take another item from the vault and use it as a replacement. Items stored in the vault can still be removed at any time, and before they are automatically consumed, you can still manually equip them or use them for durability replenishment as normal. There is also an important overflow option. If you enable overflow, every time the system performs an automatic refill, the durability will always be restored to full and can even exceed the original maximum. If you disable overflow, the refill will only restore durability up to the normal maximum, so there is no excess, although in some cases the item may not be fully restored. This really depends on your strategy. If you want to conserve the resources stored in your vault, keep overflow disabled. If you want to make sure your artifacts always have full durability, then enabling it is the safer option. Next is core rerolling, and I think this is one of the most important parts because it directly affects your endgame power. Only orange and red cores can be rerolled, while powers cannot be rerolled at all. The first time you obtain an orange or red core, it automatically gets one free reroll without costing any resources. From the second reroll onward, all divine attributes will be completely randomized again, and once you reroll, your previous set of attributes cannot be restored, so you really need to think carefully before pressing that reroll button. One especially important thing to remember is that if you use a core that has already been rerolled as durability material for another core, its divine attributes will not be restored. So don't use a valuable core with good divine attributes as replenishment material unless you're absolutely sure you don't need it anymore. As for divine attributes, they are divided into two types: basic attributes and legendary attributes. Each reroll gives you either 2 or 3 basic attributes. The chance of getting 2 attributes is 60%, while getting 3 attributes has a 40% chance. If 2 or 3 of those attributes are exactly the same, you'll activate dual resonance, which increases their effectiveness by an additional 70%, or Trinity synergy, which increases their effectiveness by 100%. These are basically the jackpot rolls that everyone hopes to get when rerolling. For basic attribute strength, the probability distribution is heavily weighted toward lower values. Rolls between 0 and 40% strength have a 21.89% chance, 40 to 60% has 35%, 60 to 80% has 25%, 80 to 90% has only 12%, 90 to 95% has 4%, and 90 to 98% has just 2%. Extremely high rolls are incredibly rare, with 98 to 99% having only a 0.1% chance, and 99 to 100% having just 0.01%. Looking at these numbers, you can see that getting an extremely high roll is basically like winning the lottery, so don't expect to hit max attributes easily. Just keep farming consistently, and eventually you'll get some really strong rolls. Finally, let's talk about what you should buy from the mall and what you should completely skip. After carefully considering the long-term value of each item, this is how I would rank them. Your absolute #1 priority should be the Legendary Artifact Core Selection Box, which costs 1.25K. It's expensive, but it lets you directly choose the legendary core you need. This is one of the fastest ways to complete the build for your main carry, so if you have enough resources, I strongly recommend putting them here first. Next is the Legendary Power Selection, which costs $750. Just like the Core Selection box, being able to directly choose the legendary power you want is extremely valuable. You should try to purchase all 15 available copies over time, so don't let that limit go to waste. Once you already have a solid foundation of legendary cores and powers, you can start looking at the next priority group for late-game min-maxing. Artifact Essence costs 100 and is used for rerolling divine attributes. As you progress further, you'll need more and more of it, so once you start optimizing your build, gradually invest in this resource. Then we have Primal Shard 2, which costs 200 per piece. You need 20 pieces, meaning a total cost of 4,000 to obtain 1 red artifact core. The potential is definitely high, but the cost is extremely expensive, and the result is heavily RNG dependent. I would only recommend buying these when you already have plenty of resources and want to gamble for a potentially powerful core. Don't invest heavily into this too early. For the lower priority options, we have the Epic Artifact Core Selection Box, which costs 300. It's much cheaper than the legendary versions, but it will eventually be replaced as your account progresses. I would only buy 1 or 2 if you're stuck in the mid-game and need an immediate power boost. Don't spend too many resources on it. Artifact Energy costs 100 and works similarly. Only buy the amount you actually need when you're short on energy for conduction crystal exchanges or key rerolls. There's no reason to stockpile it because you're better off saving your mall resources for more valuable items. And finally, these are the items I recommend completely skipping. Random Epic Artifact Power costs 170, but it's still heavily RNG based, so you can easily end up with useless stats. Then we have the Rare Artifact Core Selection Box for 50 and Rare Power Selection for 30. Their stats are simply too low once you've reached epic and legendary gear, so they're mainly useful as early game materials and aren't worth investing in once you've progressed further. To summarize it as simply as possible, prioritize the legendary selection items, both core and power, above everything else. Once you have a solid legendary foundation, use your remaining resources on Artifact Essence to improve your divine attributes over time. As for the random and rare items, just skip them and save your resources for something that actually matters. That's all for today's video. I hope this guide helped you understand the artifact system in WoW Adventure a little better. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure to read and answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.